All right, thanks everybody for waiting and welcome to our training webinar as well as our Ask a Fluxxpert. I am Sean, I'm with Flux here. As always, joining me today, I have a few of our Fluxxperts and we're going to be going over the Outlook add-in as well as the Grantee budget. So we'll be going over the basics of the two new Flux features. Both are fairly simple in function, but there could definitely be some confusion when setting these up. So after the overview portion of today's webinar, we'll be having a Q&A with a couple of our Fluxxperts on the Outlook add-in and the Grantee budget features. Today we have Oliver, who is a Tier 2 support specialist, as well as Kevin, who is a customer success manager and former Tier 2 support specialist. If you should have any questions at any time during the session, and we do really emphasize on any time, please do throw those into the chat section. So before we do get started, just want to make sure everybody is familiar with where the chat function lives. So at the bottom of your screen, you'll see the little chat button. Go ahead and click on that and pull it up in the chat window. Now that you've got it up, let's just have some fun. I want you all to enter your guiltiest food pleasure. You know, I'll be the first to admit it. Mine, unfortunately, is French fries. You know, McDonald's, I hate to say that, but they are so good. See's Candies Toffettes, oh, those look really good. Hot dogs are In and Out, yeah. Burritos, all right, good, good, good. All right, so we're gonna just take a break. We're gonna go get some lunch, ice cream, all right. And dessert all in one. Great. All right. So now that we all know where the chat function is, that's where you're going to be able to use it to throw in your questions as they come up. Again, we'll address all the questions at the end of the webinar, but please don't hesitate from asking them as they come up in your mind. So let's go ahead and switch gears and get started with the overview portion of today's webinar. So in today's webinar, we'll be looking into the Outlook add-in and its configuration, the Grantee budgeting function and its configuration, and of course, our Fluxxperts will be available at the end of the overview to answer questions about both of the new features. So we're going to start today with one of our most highly anticipated features, and that is the Microsoft Outlook plugin. So here's a quick glance, a first look at the Microsoft Outlook plugin. The plugin itself will allow you to connect messages from Outlook to existing records in Flux. For instance, if you've been having an email conversation with a current Flux user, you'll be able to upload that email thread into Flux. You will need to add the Save to Flux app from the Microsoft Store first. So you can click on the store icon here to find the app. I'll show you what that process looks like on the next slide. But once you add the app, you'll see the Save to Flux icon as well as the modal on the far right of the screen. Note, you'll see all the connected grants, requests, and users that are connected to the user in the selected email. The user's email address in Outlook must match their email in Flux for the connection to be made. This will give you the option to select which record to connect the email to. You'll see a light gray icon, and simply clicking on that light gray icon will connect that particular email to that record. You can see which records have already been connected by the slightly darkened green icon. So if you notice on the screen on the right-hand annotated side, the first record for River Resources Incorporating ending in 16505, that envelope icon is in the light gray, where the record directly below it is in a darker green one. So the green indicates that it has already been connected to that record, and where the light gray shows that it has yet to be. So at this time, only these three models, which are grants, requests, and users, are available to connect to. We do intend to continue to add other models, transactions, and reports, for instance, as we continue to develop the feature. So as promised, here's where you'll find the Outlook add-in in the Microsoft Store. So what you'll do is you'll search for Save to Flux, as you see there, and then you'll go ahead and toggle it on. You may notice some of the language there. It says this may require additional purchase. Don't worry, that's just language from the Microsoft Store, and it simply means that you currently need to be a Flux GrantMaker client, which all of you are, in order to utilize this add-in. Once you've toggled on the add-in, you'll see the login section over on the right-hand side. When you click on Save to Flux icon, simply enter the URL of your Flux instance, as well as your login and password. Then just click Sign In, and this will begin your connection to Flux. Pretty simple stuff. There is one other step that you must do within your GrantMaker platform itself. And to do that, to configure the Outlook plugin, you simply go to your admin panel, click on Plugins, and ensure you're on Integrations. And then for the Outlook integration, on the right-hand side, you just need to check the box for the Outlook integration. It's that simple. Once that's done, you've now made the connection to Outlook. In order to track the emails within your grant request or the other models, you'll need to go to your form builder, choose your particular model and the theme, and then add your field. In the field selector, you're going to select the component that is the external emails, and then you'll add that to the form. You can add a label to this component to match your particular naming preference. In the example that we have on screen, we named it Outlook Emails. Now, if you wanted to see the emails that you've uploaded via the Outlook add-in, you can find them in two places. The central repository for all emails used within the email archive, and now the external emails in the emails model. This card is located in the Contact Management tab in your Add Card menu. So this is how your email card is going to appear. Keep in mind, this is also where all your emails that have been sent through the email archive component also gather. As I mentioned, the emails card is a repository for all things email. The next place you're going to find emails is in the external emails component, once you've added that to the form of your choice. Note that since we labeled this Outlook emails earlier, that's how it'll appear on the card. Clicking on the hyperlink will open an email record like the one seen on the right. Now that's going to cover all of the current functionality of the Outlook add-in. But keep in mind, we are constantly improving its functionality and releasing new iterations of this highly anticipated email solution. So some of the examples of the development plans for our Outlook plugin are seen on the screen here. Currently, the entire thread that you upload to Flux will appear as it exists now in Outlook, but it won't continue to add to the conversation. So development is planned to allow threads to continue to develop in Flux as the conversation continues in Outlook once the initial connection is made. As the integration currently works, you may only connect the email threads to grants, requests, and people. The full development will include all of the core models. Also, in the current beta feature, attachments are not included, but the plan is to include attachments in future iterations. So stay tuned for these changes in upcoming releases, and then feel free to provide us feedback as you start to experience with this new exciting tool. All right, now that we've gone over the fun bits and future of the Outlook add-in, We can next dive into the grantee budgeting. One thing that is often asked of grantees is to provide details about their budgets and projected spending. This helps properly assess the need and accuracy of the amount that they are granted. Flux now provides a way to do this via dynamic cards. After some setup, grantee budgets can be created as their own records and can either be edited and created from record listings within this model or from the grantee budget component that is available in the grant request model. The first thing that we want to do is to enable the new configuration setting. To do this, check the box for Show Grantee Budget Cards to enable the grantee budget cards. It lives in the admin panel in the Global Settings section under General Settings, and then on the right-hand side in the Attributes tab. If you do a Command F to search for grantee, it may help kind of trim down all the scrolling you may need to do. Next, we want to set up the desired fields to capture our data. So to get there, you're going to open your card settings from your admin panel and scroll to the grantee budget model. You'll select the Fields tab to begin adding fields to be referenced in the budget. Then for each field, we'll want to add to the Select New field at the bottom of the screen. You'll add a description like salaries, rent, food, etc., whatever it may be, and then select the field type of budget field. One thing you will notice when creating fields that it will create two model attribute fields. One is budgeted and one is actual. These are created so that these discrete values can be referenced in all current reporting options. Warning though, when removing one field, make sure that you remove budgeted field first. So now that we have the tool turned on and all the fields set up, we can now start building. To do so, you're going to go back to your form builder and select the grantee budget model type. You'll create your theme, and there can be multiple grantee budget themes. Once your theme is created, open the builder to start adding elements to the form. Required fields that should be included are name, start date, end date, and the grantee budget component. For the grantee budget component in the attributes pane, the following will need to be set. First is selecting your budget fields from the selector. Once you've picked them, you can add a label. If you need to add another budget item, then click the plus icon to add another one. Additionally, you can have custom fields that you can add for grantees so they can add their own fields to the budget table. These other fields allow the grantees to add what they may want to willingly provide information about that you have not specifically requested. This can be configured for up to 10 additional fields. So next up is the workflow. Adding and configuring workflow states is the same as all the other models. The unique portion of the workflow, like all models, lies in the workflow categories. Grantee budget workflow categories limit the ability of what is available for editing. For example, budgeted fields cannot be edited if a workflow state is in a workflow category of actual or closed. Actual fields cannot be edited if the state is in a workflow category of budget or closed. Closed category prevents updating both the budgeted and actual values. If no workflow states are configured, it defaults to all fields being editable and no limitations are applied to the budget fields. So now that you've set up your grantee budget model, you may be asking, how do we get it on the grant request itself? Well, that's done by using the grants requests grantee budget component. This new component allows the selection of a grantee budget on a grant request. It supports the selection of specific grantee budget model themes to allow multiple budget configurations. On the grant request card, we can see here that the grantee budget component in its base state with no grantee budgets associated with it. To add our grantee budget record, we'll just click the plus button. Notice in this example, the grantee budget form is in the state category of budgeted, and that just the budgeted values are editable. Also notice the optional field is editable in this workflow state, while the assigned workflow category is budgeted. Once saved, the component displays rolled up totals along with edit and delete icons based on available user permissions. Multiple budget values will roll up values into totals. Here's an example of the edit view via the grant request grantee budgeting component, or GRGBC. No, that's not an acronym. So the example we see is in the edit view of that component when the grantee budget is in a workflow category of closed. So you can take note that since the workflow state is closed, no fields are editable. You know, we have some more examples and details in our knowledge base article on the grantee budget. You can always reference back for some more specifics to get some reference points. All right, well, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for the overview portion of today's webinar. So now we're going to pivot into our Q&A session with our Fluxxperts. Again, today we have Oliver and Kevin on our panel. So before we get into the Q&A, Oliver, welcome. Do you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
Hey there, my name's Oliver. I've been at Flux for just over close to a year and a half now. Was tier 1 for most of that time. Now I'm tier 2.
Excellent. Yeah, I've worked with you quite a bit, and great resource of knowledge, and I appreciate you joining us here today.
Sure.
And then Kevin, I think everybody may know you, but if anybody is joining us for the first time, please share a little bit about yourself.
I'm sure everyone's getting so tired of my voice. But yes, I've been with Flux for over 2 years now. I was in support, tier 1, tier 2, and now I'm a customer success manager. So I'm sure a lot of you have talked to me.
Yeah. And happy belated birthday, by the way, Kevin.
Thank you.
Just last week.
Thank you.
Woo. All right. So let's address some of your questions now. We had some questions submitted ahead of time from some folks, so we'll get to those first, and then we'll move on to the questions that you've all asked during the webinar. And then we'll just open it up for any new questions that may come in. All right, so let's take a look here. So one of the first questions that came in was, does the user need to be in Flux to save an email via the Outlook Addin? Oliver, do you mind helping us address that one?
All right, so to save an email to the Flux Addin, for it to actually save to the connected record, you need to be logged into the Addin itself from Outlook. You can't do it directly from the dashboard itself. Should we move on to email archive?
Oh, sure. Yeah. If you want to, you see the questions that we have here.
Yeah.
So go ahead. If you want to
Okay.
take these, that'd be great.
Okay, so yeah, email archive. So that one just saves directly to the email archive component, and that's actually initiated from the request itself, whereas the Outlook add-in actually looks at the user connected to the record and verifies the emails that are in your email thread. And with that, it saves those emails to the appropriate grant request in your site.
Okay, so the email archive component, that just allows you within Flux itself to send some one-off emails.
Yeah, initiate from there, record. Yes.
Where the Outlook add-in allows you to pull in all these conversations you've had externally outside of Flux and connect them to the relevant records within the Flux platform.
Yes, you've got it.
Excellent. Great. And now the last question we see here, I think is a great question. I'd love to kind of find out more about this. Is the Outlook add-in available with the mobile app?
Currently not at this time, though it's something we could definitely explore in the future.
Yeah, you know, this is a new feature in its infancy, so there is a lot to come in the future, both near and far. So great question that very well could be on the platform in the near future. But yeah, keep eyes and ears out with all our releases for all the latest and greatest features and functions. Great. Thank you so much for that, Oliver.
Sure.
We have a couple more questions that have come in. It looks like around the grantee budget itself. So let's move into those. All right. So we have some here. Do you use an embedded card to pull fields from the grantee budget card? So Kevin, can you help us out with that one?
Hey, yeah, sure. So it acts almost like it. It's not. You're not using an embedded card component. As Sean said earlier, his awesome acronym. It's the GRGBC, which is on the grant request model. You would use the grantee budgeting component. That component itself pulls in the fields that you configure within the grantee budgeting card model. So I don't know if you recall, but earlier, if you go into the grantee budget card model, you would build a field within card settings, and it's going to actually automatically build two versions of that field for you. It's going to be the budgeting and the actual. So by using the grantee budgeting component, it's going to pull those fields. So not exactly an embedded card, but it works kind of like it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. You know, I think the important part is you know, defining the fields that you want to capture first, right? So if you try to add that component onto a form and you don't have any questions, chances are you haven't defined those in the card settings yet.
Right.
So
exactly.
Now, second question, maybe Kevin, you can help us out with that. Is
Sure.
How does the fields lock? Can an admin reverse that?
Yeah, so that's actually going to also fall in within the workflow that you configure for the grantee budget card model. So when you build those workflow states in the grantee budgeting model, you'll have categories. There'll be there's going to be budget, actual, and closed. So depending on where the grantee budget record is in the workflow, certain fields will lock and unlock. So if you have a record that's in the budget workflow state, actual is going to be locked. The only thing you can edit is budget, and then vice versa. And of course, admins will always supersede any workflow permissions, allowed roles, anything like that. So the only way to kind of move it back, so for example, if you have a grantee budget record that's in the actual state and you realize you need to make a change to the budgeted column, the admin could then move that record back in the workflow, and then that column will unlock.
That's great. And so that kind of threw me for a loop, but I think I understand it much better with your explanation. I was thinking some sort of lock icon, but we're talking about just the inability to edit a record.
Right.
Right. And that is all related to the workflows. Great. Thank you very much. And we have one other one here. Kevin, you're on a roll. So is there a way to allow grantees to provide budget totals in a more granular way?
So this is actually something that I've spoken to a few clients about, just in my new role here. Right now there isn't. there's those custom fields that you could put in, but they don't really calculate the way it's actually going to roll up everything that you enter in a custom field. So if I'm understanding this question correctly, it's kind of similar to what I've been talking to clients about. But for example, if you have like a field that says like travel costs, right? And there's like a total sum for that. I think they want to be able to like parse that out even more. So you'll have a main category of travel cost, and then you want these 2 subcategories to say what those were, right? So like half of the travel cost was, a train fee. The other half was a plane ticket. So they want to be able to like report on that. Right now, there's no way to do that with the functionality, but again, it's still so early on. The community is a great place to get traction for things like this. If you want this to be added, we'll listen to our clients as long as it's asked for. So right now, no, but that's something that we could look at in the future.
Yeah, no, again, that all's coming back to like this being, something new. A lot of people have been asking for the ability to connect their Outlook emails with Flux for a while. So it's exciting to have it available, and it's super exciting to see what's going to come from it. So great. Thank you very much. Let's take a look here and get into some additional questions that have been submitted during this session. So we have one here is, when would the email attachment most likely be implemented? That's a great question. Oliver, if you don't mind, can you help expand upon that?
All right, so we don't have any timeline on this right now, but it's definitely good to know there's actually some clamor for this. We'll definitely help like identify like which features are wanted, and help like identify which ones to bring out in the next version.
Yeah, no, it's definitely in the plans to enable the email attachment, but the fact that we're hearing from it locally on this webinar in the community, there's I don't want to jinx anything, but that does help us provide some traction to roll out specific features that are needed before others. So that's great. Thank you very much. Let's see here. We have another question around the emails one. Can you sync emails from other platforms such as Gmail? That's a good question.
So currently right now, I believe it only syncs from the Outlook client. I haven't necessarily tested if you, say, connect a Gmail email account to your Outlook client and then attempt to. That being said, if you do run any issues with that when you try to test that out, please reach out to support me and help you out with that.
Yeah, it is set up for the Outlook program only, but that does make a good point. Like if you use Outlook as your email platform for your Gmail client, would that be possible?
Sorry, could you repeat that? Sorry.
Well, I was just kind of confirming, like it is set up just for Outlook right now, yes. But if you use Outlook as your
primary client, right?
Yeah, your email system, and you put in your Gmail account, will that allow it to be done? Yeah. So that is some good kind of testing that we can try, as well as if you try it yourself and run into any problems, please let us know in support and we can dig in further with you. So let's take a look at some additional questions here. All right, we have one here. Hi, Aaron. It says, I have set up the Outlook add-in, but the upload button doesn't do anything. Any ideas what the issue might be?
All right, let's see.
So they have the Outlook add-in set up, but the upload button just doesn't do anything.
That's interesting. I'd say submit a support ticket with that so we can take a deeper look at that. Yeah, right now, like we need additional details to look into that further.
Yeah, if that icon of that envelope is not turning to green, then that would, just generally indicate that it's not actually connecting to the record. And I'm sure you may be seeing the lack of connectivity on the record itself. But yeah, if you have any specific examples, please submit a support ticket and we can investigate further on that one. All right, and so if you have any other questions, great time to add them in there to the Q&A section or the chat section. Anything around grantee budgeting, or emails.
Okay, so it looks like this one is asking, my company's Outlook version doesn't have the store. Is there another way to download the plugin? All right, looks like the only way to download the plugin is through the store. That being said, we found that when setting this up on our systems, that you do need a specific, I believe, Outlook Exchange license. For that, you'll have to reach out to your local administrator to get that set up.
Yeah, and it is per machine, right? So
yes, per account, per seat.
Right. So if you have like an IT department, you may want to connect with them to get permission. Let's see here. So we have another one here. What if the record you want to connect the email to isn't in the right-hand column? Is there a search functionality that's available? That's a good question.
Okay, so for that one, like I mentioned previously, the way that the Outlook Addin identifies which records to connect to is based off of the email that the user has that's connected to the record per se, right? So let's say you're emailing your grantee within Outlook, and you want to save that email thread to the request they submitted. If that same email exists within Flux, with the one that's within your email thread, it should be able to identify that record that you can save it to.
Got it. So the key is the contact info.
Yes,
right.
That needs to exist within Flux. Then we'll be able to identify which record to save it to.
Yeah, because otherwise it's kind of just shooting in the dark and just like tag it to the wrong record. That may cause many problems. So
yeah, definitely good tip is to like keep your CRM house in order if you want to use this functionality well.
Great. Thank you very much. We have another question around the grantee budget. Let's see here. Does the grantee budgeting support calculated fields? Would this be used primarily for grant applications? Looks like the rest of it may have cut off, but I think we got a good start to that. Kevin, would you be able to help expand upon that?
Yeah, so it wouldn't be able to use calculated fields. You'll only pull in fields that you create in the grantee budget card model. However, you could have those fields calculate a variance, and that's something that wasn't covered in this webinar, but this is something that could be covered in an expansion webinar on grantee budgeting. So if you want to kind of learn more about this functionality, and there's even like an Excel snapshot of it. So if you guys want to learn more about that, let us know in the community. Let us know in the suggestion box that also exists in the upcoming training calendar. So that's the best place to let us know that this is the kind of content that you that you're looking to get here.
Yeah, no, that's great. And the grantee budgeting is relatively new as well, and we are constantly looking at the feedback that comes from the use of it and looking to fine tune and hone in its functionality. So there may be more to come in the future, but there's definitely some more info out there that we can expand upon. So great questions thus far. We have, looks like a couple more so far. What's your suggestion for identifying which record to connect to in the event that multiple records appear, as in our example itself? So opening a browser window, searching for that grant request, and matching the grant ID works, but it takes a while for certain users. I mean, yeah, you're right. It is a lot of extra clicks. So what's our best practices around connecting emails that may have multiple records? Oliver, do you mind helping us out with that one?
Yeah, sure. So as you mentioned before, we're still working on updates to the Outlook Addin, and definitely being able to add more contextual information in the listing of the records you see on the sidebar is definitely some useful information we could bring forward to our product team for later revisions.
Yeah, it seems like it pulls in like the record ID.
Yeah, record ID and like the associated user. I can't remember off my head, but yeah, like you mainly just have like 2 pieces of information currently. So in the future, like we can definitely add in some more context to actually know which record you're referring to.
Yeah, I believe there may even have been some talk around trying to pull in whatever you have in the list view into the plugin that you see in Outlook. So a lot of different ideas are being vetted out, but definitely, again, it's a work in progress. All right. So let's see if there's anything else here. All right, so we have one for the Excel and Word plugins. You were able to send a link and that worked. Is that possible for Outlook?
All right, so I think in this case, because this specific add-in is only available through the store and requires authentication through the Microsoft Store, we can only provide it through that means. The difference being is that the Excel and Word plugins were built outside of the store and don't require any special authentication when installing it. So that's likely the reason why we are unable to provide it as a link.
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft has been around for a while. They have their certain, access points that they need to allow the channel of, downloads and such. So just following what's available and communicating from there. All right, so we're going to take a quick look here and see if there's been any other questions that have come in. Looks like we may have addressed everything here. If we did not, forgive us. You can always reach out to your CSM for any specific one-off questions. Reach out to us here in support, and we can drill down to some more specifics and check out our knowledge base and the community. I want to thank you all for joining us today. Some great questions. Great. Oh, yeah. Well, thank you. We appreciate your thanks. All right. That's awesome. So let's see what we have. Today, we went over the webinar, the how to configure your Outlook add-in, configuring your Grantee Budgeting function, and then we went over the Q&A with our friendly Fluxxperts. So to learn more, like I mentioned, our knowledge base is found at flux.zendesk.com. The community and the training header has some great info and information in there, as well as support. You can always check us out. We do this twice monthly, give or take. We may push it a week depending on schedule availability, but we have compounded our training webinars and these Fluxxperts, and I think it's been going pretty well. So I want to continue that, and all your feedback is greatly welcomed. On the training link in our KEB, there is a link to suggest what topics you want us to provide content on. Throw in your ideas there, and we will build it, and of course, you will come. Hey. All right, so I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Oliver. Thank you. Appreciate you both. And you guys have a great rest of your day. Take care, guys.